Good afternoon and welcome to episode 17 of the Demolition Daily live stream. Somebody pointed out to me earlier that there's actually now more episodes of the Demolition live stream than there were of the TV show 40 Towers. Apparently 40 Towers only ran for 2 seasons, 6 episodes each, and here we are 17 episodes in the midst of a global pandemic and with no signs of stopping either. John Cleans needs to take a long, hard look at himself. Now, I can't promise that today's show will be a laugh-a-minute exercise, but I do hope it provides you with a bit of food for thought. Just one small thing. If anything I'm about to say chimes with you, if it strikes a chord, or if you think I'm just talking nonsense, please comment. I'm keeping an eye on the comments down the side of my screen here, and I'll be more than happy to put them on screen as well. So let's crack on with the show. I am going to be looking at my notes a bit here because I did script out quite a bit of this earlier in the day, just to make sure that I got all my facts straight. So here we go. Given the amount of time we're all spending online now, I'm sure we've all seen stories of wild buffalo returning to the US city that shares their name, of dolphins apparently frolicking in the gin-clear waters of Venice, of wild peacocks strolling casually through the streets of Mumbai. Sadly, it turns out all of these are fake news. Not the fake news because they don't match President Trump's worldview, but actual fake news. They're a hoax. However, Sika deer have apparently been spotted in Japanese cities, streets, and in subway stations, bizarrely. Raccoons have been spotted on an otherwise deserted beach in Panama. And wild turkeys have been roaming the streets of Oakland in California. In each instance, this is merely wild animals taking advantage of a temporary lull in human activity. It's not, as some have suggested, a rewilding. It's not Mother Nature hitting a big red reset button. Sadly, such a reset button doesn't exist. And if it did, it would take more than a few weeks to put right the damage that humanity has caused on the planet already. But here in the demolition sector, I believe that we do have an opportunity to hit the reset button, to rewrite some of the past wrongs, and to actually take our rightful place on the food chain. Allow me to explain. When I'm interviewing demolition men and women, one of my favourite questions is one that I saved to last. And it is simply, if you were king or queen of all demolition for a day, what would you change? Obviously, depending on who I'm speaking to, the responses always vary. But there are a few answers that come up time and time again. Better rates of pay or better margins, having our expertise heeded and our advice followed by those that look down on us generally, getting paid on time and getting paid without dispute, being recognised as equals to those in the construction industry. And to my mind, if ever there was a time that those wishes could become a reality, surely that time is now. Even with the construction industry in a partial lockdown, it picked up more than £8 billion worth of new contract awards in the month of March alone. Yesterday brought the news that £12 billion worth of work related to HS2 had been given the green light. Now, admittedly, that's not new money. That's been allocated before. But in order for that new high-speed rail network to cut its way through the English countryside, some demolition will be required. In short, there's about £20 billion worth of pent-up construction demand waiting to start just as soon as this lockdown ends. And a large proportion of that demand will hinge upon some form of demolition. For once, demolition could find itself in the driving seat. After decades of being treated as the whipping boy, the sector now potentially has the whip hand. It can dictate its own terms, its own conditions, and its own rates. It can climb up the pecking order and make its voice heard. But, and it's a but big enough to make Kim Kardashian green with envy, in order for this to happen, the demolition sector will need to make it happen. They will need to refuse to recommit to working practices, payment terms, and contractual arrangements in which they have traditionally been seen as the poor relation or even expendable. And therein lies the challenge. For one thing, demolition companies will be desperately keen to get back to work themselves. For another, the demolition industry, certainly here in the UK, lacks unity. It's allowed its power base and its influence to wane. And in my opinion, it's also become far too closely allied to trade bodies such as Build UK, the members of which are the very companies that force down prices, make preposterous demands, and that pay us when they feel like it. Now, I think you've only got to look at the way that Build UK and others of its ilk have conducted themselves over the last few weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic. The entire nation is on lockdown. Advice from Public Health England states quite clearly that we should all practice social distancing. And every day for the past 4 weeks or more, the death toll has continued to rise. But the construction industry has lobbied and fought to remain open. It's created its own set of rules. In fact, at last count, I think that it's done it 3 times, that make it exempt from the 2-metre social distancing rule. It's placed wealth ahead of health. And the demolition business has largely trotted along behind it like an obedient lapdog, even though we're all aware of the potential risks to life. Surely now, having been treated like so much cannon fodder in the past, it's time for demolition to fight its corner, to stand our ground, to say enough is enough, and to plot our own future. Now, we've all had weeks in which to look at our businesses, to analyse what we're doing right, and to plan our way around or out of the things we're doing wrong, to create our own new normal. I know I have. Our printers are currently on lockdown, so we can't actually produce a physical copy of our magazine, but we can produce it digitally. We can distribute it electronically. And while some people might miss the paper edition, and I know I'll be one of those, our distribution numbers have actually grown by about 20% over the last 6 weeks. The level of engagement that we're enjoying on social media platforms is up by almost 32%. And although it was created out of necessity, even this live stream is now being viewed by upwards of 10,000 people each day on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram TV, and of course on Demolition News. Now, that number is likely to reduce when everyone goes back to work. I can't imagine people stopping work at 3 p.m. just to listen to me babble on for another half an hour. Even if it didn't, I'm not sure I'd want to commit to producing a daily show for the rest of my working life. But I sure as hell won't be going back to the way that I worked in the past either. I won't go back to exchanging my time for pound notes or dollar bills. The real value in my business lies in the fact that we've amassed the world's largest demolition audience. With the press of a button, I can put a message, a photograph, or a video on the screen of more than 200,000 individuals around the world. So while I like to describe myself as a journalist, writing words on paper ceased to be my primary source of income years ago. Another key change that I'm planning, and one that I think demolition companies would do well to heed, is I'm being more selective in the companies and the brands that I choose to work with. Since the lockdown hit, I've received phone calls, emails, text messages, WhatsApp messages, and Instagram direct messages to check that I'm okay, to offer me encouragement. A few have sponsored what at the time was an unproven live stream show. Now, those are the companies that I want to work with and to collaborate with going forward. Those are the companies that I want to push and promote through our various social media channels. Those are the brands that I want to get behind. Now, at the same time, itchy nose every day. At the same time, I've been keeping a list, and it really is a physical list of those companies and those organizations that have chosen to profit from a global pandemic, that have withheld money from me and from others during a time of crisis, that have issued kindly press releases detailing how much they care for their staff, while quietly making some of them redundant, or expecting them to continue working despite the known risks. Assuming we all survive, I'll happily take their advertising cash. I still have a family to feed at the end of the day. But in my book, their card is marked, and it's marked permanently. Now, no good can ever come from a global pandemic that's already killed more than 12,000 British citizens, that's decimated families and communities, that's closed international borders and brought the world to a halt. But there are lessons to be learned here, and it's whether we choose to heed those lessons that will define the demolition industry in the future. How we act when the lockdown finally ends will decide whether we return to our role as lapdogs to the construction industry, or whether we take our place at our rightful place at the very top of the food chain. Thanks for listening to all that. It's quite a ramble. Blimey, nearly 10 minutes. I don't know how you put up with it. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Obviously going to get this up on YouTube and Instagram TV so that people can see it on the other platforms as well. Really appreciate you all being with us again. Another good number of people watching live over on Facebook. As usual, stay safe, look after each other, look after your family, your friends, yourselves. Stay safe. And I will see you again at 3 o'clock tomorrow. Just one small thing. If you do have a look over on our YouTube channel, this is the 17th episode, but we've also got a new video up featuring a Caterpillar 352 UHD ultra high reach demolition machine. Is a nice global exclusive. So if you're missing watching machines in action, we've got something for you to see there. Again, thanks for watching, thanks for taking part, and I'll see you again tomorrow. All the best.